In lesson 3, we're going to talk about a histogram as another way to organize data and statistics. For this example, it says 11 students ran an experiment. They each bought a bag of trail mix and counted how many chocolate candies were inside their bags. Below is their data. So here's the number of chocolates that were in each bag. And now we're going to see when I'm looking at my data and which way I want to organize it. We've talked about dot plots, frequency tables, and now we're going to look at histograms and why we would use a histogram instead of a dot plot. When I'm looking at this data, I'm looking at the range, and the range being from the smallest to the largest number. So in my data, I'm looking through 31 is the smallest number that I see. That's my minimum. And the maximum pieces of chocolate was 119. So that's a very large range. There's a big difference between 31 and 119. If I were to make a dot plot, I would have to include all the numbers between 31 and 119. That's a lot of numbers. What a histogram does is it groups numbers or the data into intervals, into groups of numbers, so that I don't need as much space. So for this one, if I'm looking between 31 and 119, I might start with 30 because I want to make sure I can include all of my data. And I'm going to group it in groups of 20. So this would be 30 through 50. The next one would be 50 through 70. Now here's where I want to stop for a minute though, because there's a problem with this. When I get to my first number, 50, and I want to make a tally mark and next to the interval where 50 would go, well, I'm looking here and 50 could go in two places because 30 through 50 would include 50, but 50 through 70 also includes 50. So this is where we're going to actually put a little less than sign. We're going to say this interval is actually 30 through anything less than 50. So really 30 through 49. And then this one will be 50 through anything less than 70. So really 50 through 69. Then I would have the 70 through anything less than 90. Then I would have 90 through anything less than 110. And the last one would be 110 through anything less than 130. Okay, so now that there's those less than signs, just means that I only have one place to put my 50. So once I have my intervals, I'm going to go through and I'm going to do my tally and frequency, just like I would do a normal frequency table. I'm going to take the first number, cross it off, and I'm going to put 50. 50 is not less than 50. It would go in the second group here, and I'm going to put a tally mark. Then I'm going to go through with 42, which would go up here. And I'm going to continue like this until all of my data has been input into my frequency table. So once my frequency table has been completed and I've crossed off, put all the data into tallies, I then took my tallies and counted them up, and that's the frequency of how often a bag of trail mix would have this number of chocolates. So 7 bags had between 30 and 49 pieces of chocolate. 9 bags had between 50 and 69 pieces of chocolate. Okay, so once I have my frequency done, I'm going to come over here to where I'm going to put my histogram, which is very similar to a bar graph. The first thing I need to do is I need to label my axis. So I have my number of chocolates down here. These are my intervals. So I have 30 through less than 50. My next one would be 50 through less than 70. All right, and I'm going to continue on, 70 through less than 90. And when I'm all done with that, I'm also going to add my frequency on my side. So I'm going to jump ahead to what this table looks like when it's complete. So when it's all said and done, my axes are labeled. I'm going to put this square one here. My first interval should be 7. So it's going to come up to 7, and it'll look very similar to a bar graph. You can fill it in, color it in. Okay. The next one would be 9. 50 through 70 was up to 9. So I'm going to draw 9 there. Then the next one is 2. Then I have 1. And the last one is 3. And the reason that the histogram works really nice is when you have that really big range where you need to kind of group the numbers to make sure that your organization is a bit